Hi, I'm Matt McDonald, retired Philadelphia police detective. I spent most of my career, about 23 years, with Philadelphia Police, and the bulk of that time was in the narcotics unit. I worked in the Violent Traffickers Project, all mid to high-end investigations involving narcotics and violence. On one particular case, we worked for months trying to acquire enough information to make purchases from a middle level to upper level narcotics dealer. We had everything set in motion. We had a takedown team we implemented the dual hotel room where we had a takedown team in one room and myself as the undercover working with a confidential informant was working the adjacent room. I showed up to the hotel, I got to the lobby, I hit the elevator button, and as I was approaching getting into the elevator, another individual came on and jumped on the elevator with me. Well, it turned out it was an investigator from a different police agency, and he had a conversation with me that went like, "Matt, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm buying a kilo of Coke." I said, "What are you doing here?" He said, "We're selling a kilo of Coke." So there would have probably ended it with a shooting, a police shooting. Investigating criminal activities often places officers in unpredictable and precarious situations. Sometimes officers transform themselves, working undercover to infiltrate criminal organizations and establish relationships. Because of the dangerous nature of some law enforcement activities, it is critical for officers to have the necessary information and resources to proactively identify and respond to criminal activities while remaining safe. In addition to officers being hurt by suspects during law enforcement operations, friendly fire can occur when an officer inadvertently hurts or kills another officer. One way to help prevent these tragedies is for officers to use an event deconfliction system.
Using event deconfliction, one of the things that I learned most about it was that any time that any agency or officers are working undercover, it's important to know if there's any other law enforcement agencies out there also looking into your same subjects. Surveillance, undercover, and serving search warrants. If you go into a residence or to a location and there's officers who are also undercover and you're unaware that they're also looking into your same subject, that could cause conflict and potentially could be dangerous for the officers.
Deconfliction, I think, promotes safety. As it relates to the officers, we've actually had instances across this country where we were running the same event at the same time at the same location and didn't realize. In fact, there has been some cases where there were shootouts amongst police, not knowing that they were police. Trying to avoid that potential conflict, which can happen when you think about the hierarchy of law enforcement of federal, state, and local. There's any number of possibilities that can occur with multiple agencies investigating the same person, could be located at the same address, and things of that nature. So personal safety, obviously, first and foremost. Then the time and money invested in investigations that could ultimately be compromised by another agency doing something that may have totally disrupted your investigation. So not only officer safety, but certainly the sanctity and preservation of the assets and resources that are invested in an investigation can be saved as well.
In the past, I've encountered situations where eager detectives, eager investigators who are passionate about their investigations, passionate about pursuing the targets that they are pursuing, avoid or try to circumvent the event deconfliction process. But I would warn against that, as again, there's no target, there's no seizure, there's no investigation to me that is important enough to sacrifice the component of safety, particularly as it pertains to potential blue-on-blue encounters.
Deconfliction is very important in that all agencies know what's going on. We have a situation that occurred when I was in the Maryland State Police where we had another agency come in and we ended up pulling weapons on each other, and it could have gotten deadly. It did not get deadly, but it's a serious situation when you're serving warrants, when you're doing surveillances, and we have to have accountability, operations plans, and know what other agencies, police officers, law enforcement sat there with weapons. It not only protects the police officers involved, but it also protects the public. You always want to know what's going on, and the only way to do this is through event deconfliction.
There are 3 nationally recognized event deconfliction systems. The Washington-Baltimore High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area, or HIDTA, developed and operates Case Explorer. The El Paso Intelligence Center, known as EPIC, houses and provides access to the different instances of SafetyNet. The Regional Information Sharing Systems, or RISC program, developed and operates RISC-SAFE. These systems store and maintain data on planned law enforcement operations and identify and alert affected officers of potential conflicts.
I mandated several years ago that our agency deconflict every law enforcement event that we were engaged in. And quite frankly, the very first deconfliction that we experienced was internal to our agency. We had 2 separate GBI work units that were working on the same location and did not know that. But the deconfliction process connected those 2 work units together. It's a rapidly unfolding investigation, and they would not have known that they were both operating and planning events at the same location absent their deconfliction system.
We've had our fugitive apprehension unit ready for an operation, ready to serve a warrant, and arrived at a location and maybe got last-minute information that that target was not there or was somewhere in close proximity. The efficiency with which the deputies were able to access, through deconfliction, some information and safely move was perfect on the field. So the ease with which you can use it, the speed with which you get the information, and the ability to be able on the field to access that information makes us able to change the operation, move the operation, or maybe even cease the operation depending on the information we get.
In a nation with over 18,000 law enforcement agencies working at federal, state, and local jurisdictions, there's crossovers every day. And it's important for every agency to be engaged in event deconfliction, to make sure that your officers are safe, that they're not showing up at the same locations as other officers, and that they're not duplicating the efforts that some other agency may already be doing. It's all about keeping people safe.
In an effort to further strengthen officer safety and expand event deconfliction coverage nationwide, the HIDTAs, RISC, and EPIC collectively work together to integrate Case Explorer, SafetyNet, and RISC-SAFE using a solution known as the Partner Deconfliction Interface, or PDI.
From a technical standpoint, the Partner Deconfliction Interface, or PDI, was developed with the technical support of each of our 3 systems and with the support of our partners with DEA, EPIC, and the program manager for the information sharing environment, who enable us to get together and work as a team to create this piece of technology that allows the 3 systems, SafetyNet, Case Explorer, and RISC-SAFE, to talk to each other and pass information back and forth. None of the information in the systems is saved other than for audit purposes, but what PDI makes possible is for the 3 systems to deconflict events among each other and make notifications to the involved parties.
This is common sense. Anyone who understands the deconfliction system will not argue that it is an officer safety mechanism. And but the challenge, today's challenge, is to educating law enforcement leaders about what deconfliction is, and once they understand it, then they'll readily recognize the importance of it. which when federal, state, and local law enforcement use the deconfliction system, then we're operating at a national level, and that's the way it should be.
We all know the horror stories of what can go wrong, especially in an undercover capacity. It's a very dangerous situation, and a lot of the danger can be avoided simply by deconflicting. There is no reason for agencies and officers not to deconflict. It helps save lives and solves cases. It is easy to implement and is free and available nationwide to any law enforcement agency. I often wonder what would have happened if those elevator doors had closed and that officer and I didn't get the opportunity to communicate. It's very likely that this situation would have ended with devastating results. Learn more at www.ncirc.gov/deconfliction. The Event Deconfliction Partners are proud to serve you and are committed to helping ensure your safety as you work to fight crime and safeguard our communities.